Greetings, everyone. Welcome to Christ Church Live. This is Father Michael here for our weekly interview with a special guest from Christ Church. And today I have the privilege to interview our own Mr. Jeff Graham, our consummate organist at Christ Church. And just a quick note of items for consideration as we have the interview today. You have an opportunity on the sidebar to leave comments or to ask Jeff a question or to ask me a question. We're here for you. So this is just a fun time that we do every week. We record on Tuesday and we broadcast on Wednesday, I think. Is that right, Jeff? Do you know?
No. I thought it was
Tuesday. We should know that. I think we record on
What's
Monday.
a Tuesday? What's a Wednesday?
Jeff, how would you know that? But anyway, if you'd like to leave some comments, please do so. We'd love to hear from you. Jeff, welcome, my friends. Good to have you today. It's a joy to be with you and to learn what's going on in your life since the onset of COVID. How are you doing? Tell us what's going on.
Well, thanks for having me. To me, it's not too different from life as usual. I'm one of the people who have been saying that I was born for this, or I've been training all my life for this. It's something that doesn't faze me too much. What does bother me the most, of course, is there's so much suffering and uncertainty, and it's just a horrible thing to have to go through. And as responsible individuals and people of faith, we know that there are people who are talented and gifted who will guide us through this.
Sure.
We know to take that advice and stick to it.
Yeah, you're right. It's not something we would have chosen for ourselves, that's for sure. And that's life as we know it. You know, life can be sort of viewed as a roller coaster. We're up sometimes and down sometimes. And it's all in how we choose to live our lives when we're down that matters most, I think.
I think when we know we've been coasting too long, that we're not always ready for a shock or a surprise, as we have had in the past months. I know a lot of my friends have been very distressed over this, to the point of mental distress. But it's an interesting time to be involved in ministry, particularly in music, where everyone now is worshiping in absence and through screens. And with Pentecost coming up, as we know, what we call the birthday of the church, we are witnessing a radical transformation of the church.
Mm-hmm.
We're working on, as we did this morning in our worship meeting, we're transforming worship for Christ Church Coronado, and we're giving it everything we can. We're giving it our best. We're giving it with a lot of thought, with research, and deciding what's best for our particular family here.
Mm-hmm.
And we seem to be getting better at it every week. People are commenting on that. And as you know, I cannot tire enough of thanking Charlotte for being at the helm with all of this, because you and I know, Mike, that we're learning a lot about technology on this. I'm getting about ready to sign up for Netflix now. I'm feeling so good about my skills. She's doing a great job.
She really is.
It's different work. It's an interesting time to be in ministry.
Yeah, she's very gifted, and thank the Lord, you know, she's technologically savvy. So those of us who are behind the power curve, she's really been a blessing. I know we've all learned, you know, I spoke with Tom the other day. He feels a lot more comfortable, you know, as
I understand his feeling.
Yeah, and you do too. You look like you've got a good handle on this Zoom, and we use Slack at the office with Christy and Sandy and Charlotte.
Oh, Slack is very efficient. I only use Zoom to connect with all of the links I get for our various staff meetings or our individual one-on-one. I find that the Slack is wonderful in corresponding with Christy, because we have a lot of technical things to discuss, and it's just on the spot and very easy. I have it with me if I go on an errand from work. You know, I can check in the middle of the vegetable aisle to see if someone really needs anything, because lately we've had calls that need to be timely.
Yeah.
But I'm enjoying it very much, and I'm trying to get a little more adept at Zoom. But
Yeah.
I'm comfortable with this.
Yeah. You had mentioned something not too long ago. It caught me by surprise because you seem so outgoing, but you said you really are a homebody at heart. And this whole thing is sort of right up your alley, that it's a good fit for you right now. It's kind of a time for rest and relooking life and relooking music and all those things. Yeah, tell us a little bit about that. I don't know if everybody knows you're a homebody.
Glad to. And interestingly, it really became a strong feeling for me about being a homebody when I had a sudden need to stay in the hospital a couple of times. And before a year ago Christmas, I was having some problems with GI issues, and I went to see the hospital about it. I went to the emergency room, and they admitted me on the spot, and I was in there for 4 days of intravenous antibiotics. And during that time, made an appointment for surgery that would eventually remove almost half of my colon. And I was in the hospital for a week with that. I was not prepared to go in the first time. I made the best of it. It was not a pleasant experience, but the second time I went in, I had 3 months to prepare myself mentally and physically to endure a week in the hospital, hooked up to all kinds of things. And so when I got there, I woke up early that morning. Roy drove me over and stayed with me till they took me into the operating room. And during that time, I thought, well, this is going to be different. This is a new adventure. And let's see what comes of this. And the time alone was just wonderful. I had the nicest nurses and doctors. A lot of the nurses were a bunch of hot tickets. I'm telling you, we had a lot of fun. And I tried to be the perfect patient too, and I was complimented. But it made me realize, when you wake up at 1:45 in the morning and there's this enormous clock staring you right in the face, and you think, okay, it's 1:45 and I probably won't get back to sleep for 2 hours. So what should we do now?
Yeah.
And I started thinking about the choir music program, and I started thinking about organ pieces I wanted to learn, books I wanted to read, because I was going to be home for 5 weeks.
Right.
And so that kind of set the stage for everything. And so this is really no sweat. It's just more of the above with a face mask.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I know. I think the last time we discussed the choir, it was actually just before everything shut down. You had your last choir rehearsal, and you knew that this is probably going to be the last rehearsal you had in person. And you found ways to stay connected with the choir with email and humor and laughter. So kind of tell us what a typical day is like for you now. It's certainly different than before because you had choir rehearsal on Thursday nights, right? Thursday evenings, and you had a good group, and they're not there, you're not there.
They're still a good group.
Yeah,
they're
still
our
a great
family.
group. Yeah, tell us about that. I know you mentioned a typical day last time we talked. What's a typical day now?
Well, that was I was describing that day to you. So whatever day is presenting itself for my amusement, that is my typical day.
Mm-hmm.
And I try to set certain tasks to be done every day, like I did before with a lot of my office tasks and all the little odds and ends that keep a music program going. And now it's just, I have a Monday thing where I know I have a staff meeting from 10 to 11. At the staff meeting, some ideas for projects often come up, or maybe even some people's suggestions on what I might do to help out a little more, or as we transform our worship experience, to make it as beautiful online as we can. I try to think of how to make that a little bit more effective musically and liturgically. So that's Monday. Tuesday, is the worship team And that now we've got that down to a science. We don't run much longer than 40 minutes.
No.
But with the way the worship is becoming so much more beautiful and personal and family oriented as we bring more people, different people and different families into worship. There are thoughts about that on Tuesday. Now tomorrow's Wednesday, and I record with Charlotte from noon to 1. And tomorrow we will record with Michael Morgan, who will be with us this Sunday on Pentecost. And I can't wait to see him. I think it's going to be all we can do to stop from giving each other a big bear hug. And I think of Michael all the time, and we text and we send, funny things back and forth. But I know that, like everyone, we all want to get out and get back to whatever passed for normal before. Yeah. But now it's new, and it's got to be normal every day instead of normal every week. And I don't think that's a bad thing. So I try to take one day and enjoy it as I can, and try to be as creative. Often on Thursday, that's my music study day, along with Friday, in which I look at new choral music, look at solos, duets for the smaller ensembles we're enjoying during this season. And I'm looking at some very serious organ music that I may or may not ever completely learn, but I'm going to put some effort into them because they're pieces that have always fascinated me. And it's a nice day every day.
Yeah. Yeah. I think so much of our day is certainly enveloped in this thing called Zoom. We meet by Zoom, we have worship, we record our services on Wednesday. The musicians come in, Sarah and Jenny, Keith, Michael, others, the Taylors. It's kind of interesting that we've made this work in a kind of a seamless fashion. As you said, many people have commented on the number of people they see on Sunday through the worship service live streamed. We had a comment this past Sunday, and we've talked about it this morning, of a lady who had visited the National Cathedral, the Rock Church, and she was very complimentary of Christ Church, of the involvement of so many different faces. And we attribute that to the music program, of course, and Charlotte with the youth and different readers, the prayers of the people. You'll be going at some point in time, you will return to in-house worship, but it'll certainly be when we know and believe in with all of our heart that it's safe to do that we're just not jumping into it. We're not reacting because other people are doing it. I mean, they're talking about that now, churches going back to worship soon. Why don't you share a little bit, because I think people need to hear your perspective on that as well.
Well, that's quite a bit of material to cover. I would say, going back to your initial remarks about our online worship, is that, well, we're obviously doing it right. And it's not just the preaching and the music and all that pulls it together. It's also, in a wonderful musical term, we have a very harmonious staff. We get along beautifully. We understand each other's lives. We're respectful of that. As we work together over, now I'll be here 5 years in October, I've learned how people are here. And it's a different way of dealing with people. And it's much nicer than what I was used to. And the people are awfully nice. I'm personally in no hurry whatsoever to get back to group worship. And I think that when we do get back to it, we will not have rushed into it. And we should also not rush into making too many plans for it, because I have a very strong indication from listening to medical experts and other authorities on this, that if we start even thinking about this, no matter what we plan, by the end of the year, the whole thing's going to be moot, because this is not going away. And people need to face that. And it's going to be the birth of a whole new transformed church. And it's not just the worship. I would like to see, before we get back into church, we may get back to the ancient model of worshiping in homes. And I believe that's the next sane and logical step for small assemblies when it's appropriate to do so, and when there are certain homes available where certain accommodations can be followed. Other than that, I can't psychically get into even envisioning what's this going to be like, because if you have, okay, we're going to have room for 60 people. Okay, how do you decide that? Did you ask people whether or not they're inclined to come? A lot of people would not be ready, like me. Do you have an issue with previous problems physically? Are you over 65? And we're not being ageist about this. We're facing facts.
Right.
And I think that if you start getting in and measuring how far apart people sit, and make sure you didn't Purell your hands. Oh, you didn't do this. And no, you have to move back another foot. I know she's your spouse and you adore her, but this is not the deal.
Yeah.
And I envision that that's going to wear on a lot of people. And by the time they get home, they're going to be glad to be there, and they're not going to want to come back because of, oh, good God, I didn't follow this rule. And so you've got more of a rules and restrictions. And if it were me personally and a guest, I think I would leave possibly in anger. I wouldn't have felt a warm worship situation. So I don't see what the point of that is. And I think that in building community, we have to build the one we have now, which is online. Yeah. And so that we do our best for God, and we do our beautiful acts and our worship, our preaching, the beautiful reading we've had, the wonderful people like the family with the baby yesterday who was just reading right along, and he was wonderful. This is what we need more of, and that might be the model for how our worship reforms itself.
Yeah, I think you're right. I remember in seminary studying one pastor who had a church in Portland, and their model was they met in homes during the week. They did that was the bulk of their church. And then they came to worship once a week corporately. Of course, there was no COVID then, so it's easy to do. But that model, that small group model,
yes,
is certainly a good way. And as I look at everything now, and Charlotte crunches the numbers, it looks like we're gaining a lot of folks from different places around the country. So it's not just isolated in Coronado. We're reaching a broader audience now. And
we're getting very good at what we're doing.
Yeah.
And I think that this is the time to fine tune this and work on its expansion, its development, its growth, and its perfection as far as our worship can go. I do believe that this would be the logical way to keep the church going, because as we have discussed before, when all of this is over, I don't know how many people have given any thought to this, but we're going to be dealing with each other without screens again. And
yeah, you and I talked about that not long ago. He said, I think one of the comments was the fact that if the priest had come in and said, hey, we're going to put up screens next Sunday in the church, they probably would have been fired the next day. Now everything's by screen. Everything that we do is on screen.
Right.
So we have the capability to insert scripture, to have a video, to have so many different ideas coming together in worship on the screen. Now that's not to say that when we go back, hey, we're putting up screens right away. So don't hear that, anybody, that we're going to put up screens. We're just saying this is what we have now. Yeah. And I find it quite remarkable that we're reaching a broader community, and we're doing things that we've never done before. So it's challenged us outside of our comfort zone, so to speak.
Well, again, I think it proves the flexibility and the innovation that I have admired since the day I walked in the door here. And I think people have been very cooperative. I don't want to say compliant, but cooperative
Mm-hmm.
and working in harmony, which is a great phrase and it's a great concept.
Yeah.
Of harmonious cooperation, and it's I really feel it's a safe way to grow right now because
Mm-hmm.
as I've said before, we appear to be doing it right.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree with you. And I think a lot of people would as well, because we've seen so many wonderful comments on Sunday mornings, seeing different faces. And one of the ideas we have is like this Sunday, you're going to welcome everybody since I'll be gone. I'll be preaching, but I'll be somewhere else. So, and the thought of the choir, we've really been able to bring in some phenomenal singers.
We have phenomenal singers. We're bringing them in from the choir.
Yeah.
And this is the wonderful thing. And it just goes to show you how flexible everybody can be at the church. And our musicians, particularly when you sing in a volunteer choir, you really have to come in with a cooperative frame of mind because you're dealing with multiple, various and sundry personalities, all fantastic and charming in their own way. And our goal as directors, particularly with Michael, who does an exquisite job with this, is he understands how to bring people together and what the common ground is from Michael's perspective. And it has done wonders for me in my philosophies on church music, is what is our common ground? It's our faith. It's Christian faith. It's not necessarily the Episcopal tradition, the Lutheran, although we worship in Anglican style. But we have people of different backgrounds who are also nostalgic and loving of their backgrounds. I come from a very high Episcopal church background, and I don't get that here, but that's okay because it's not Christ Church, and I try to be sensitive to people in the choir and the congregation who come from different faith traditions because, music is universal. Sure. One of the Sundays before we broke up for our unfortunate time apart, we sang a motet from the Mormon tradition. And we have another one up our sleeve that we'll bring back too. They're just beautiful statements of faith that are Christian. And so we just keep the variety and the flexibility moving. And sometimes we make adjustments even on Wednesday during recording.
That's right. Yeah, true. Yeah.
I had a fuzzy head a couple of Wednesdays ago, and I just thought, for some reason, I cannot play these two voluntaries. And so I looked at Charlotte and I said, you know what? My head feels like it's got a brick in it. And I just can't. And she said, well, so let's leave them out.
Yeah.
Fine.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we're flexible, but we incorporate quite a bit of variety of music, variety of different faces to see on Sunday mornings. It's such a beautiful service, and not to say that we didn't have a beautiful service when we gathered in-house. It was beautiful. It was beautiful to see all the people represented there in the two services, the 8 and the 10. It was beautiful to hear the music, different services. And so I do miss that. But I have come to grips with what we do now, and I find that I truly enjoy it quite a bit, actually.
Yeah, it's a lot more intimate, even though we do have some beautiful intimate moments in our music presentations and offering the church.
Yeah.
But I think that with this more intimate setting, and it's difficult to choose hymns because I think of people not standing in our beautiful nave with the high roof and the nice grand organ sound and everything. I'm thinking of people in their homes, in their living rooms, in their breakfast nooks, wherever they choose to sit. They're not going to be standing up and playing along with the choir. Anything you can sing, I can sing louder. But, it's an intimate setting. And so as we go on, some of the music will become a lot more intimate as right now, even as we speak today, exploring different types of music that we can sing at home.
Yeah. Yeah, I know you have great love for church music, and you've been in a variety of different assignments. So you've seen worship styles from various perspectives, high church, low church. middle of the way kind of church?
Oh, when I've played for Christian Scientists, Southern Baptists, the list goes on.
Yeah.
The Lutheran Church, Missouri Synod, the Lutheran Church in America, and there it's quite a different tradition.
Mm-hmm.
And I've enjoyed every single bit of it.
Yeah, I think it's that whole idea of one universal church, the Holy Catholic Church, so to speak.
It's about service.
Yeah, yeah. And Christ Church is well known for that. We just have so many who are plugged into ministry in some form or fashion, and that's their life's calling, and they don't expect to receive any accolades from it. They just serve because that's what Jesus did. And so they do it. Yeah. Yeah, it's wonderful. Well, I know you have a lot going on and you have a lot on your plate, but we're honored and blessed to have you, Jeff. It's just such a joy to be with you. I always enjoyed our services together at the church. I would always need your Kleenex on a rare occasion, and you had lots of cough drops and Kleenex.
Yes. Like I've said before, it used to be chocolate, but
yeah, well,
we're getting a little too sedate these days.
I like chocolate too. But our thoughts and prayers for you and Roy and Motley, and trust the Lord is being real in your life at this difficult time. Really, certainly enjoy just all the camaraderie we have, the collegiality, the meetings we get together. Mm-hmm. And I know that you're well loved at Christ Church, and I know a lot of people will tune in. Send an email. I'll send one tonight. Let everybody know this is going to be broadcast today, actually at 3:00.
Oh, thank you for telling me. That's in an hour.
Yeah, so I'll download and send to Charlotte, and we're good. But I certainly am happy that you're with us today, and I look forward to us getting together again soon. And may God's blessings be real in our life.
Absolutely. It's a pleasure and a privilege to be here.
Thanks, Jeff. Blessings.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.